Well, hey everyone, thanks for coming back for another one of our conversations with the community and addictions. We are so glad that you're taking time out of your day to be a part of this with us, and we hope that you're enjoying these and that you're getting a lot out of them. And I think just a little aside too is what's really encouraging for me is seeing how many more people are coming to these outside of Albert Lee, outside of Freeborn County. We even have like several out of state people watching these now too.
Cool.
um, which means the numbers in the description, the phone numbers for assistance are localized because that's our world. That's where we're at. Um, but I might need to find if there's a database where numbers are listed where we can put the database in there so that you can go to that database, find your state, and then find those numbers. Do a little bit of digging, or at least make it easier for you to do the digging, to help those in your area, your community, county, state, wherever you're at watching these videos, to plug in and get the help that you need. Is really because again we're trying to make that world of addiction smaller, trying to make the like you get so small that with the addiction you're bumping around in that circle and you've got to break out to recovery. So let's make recovery easily accessible. And if I can put it that way. We've all had coffee, so if I talk a little fast, that's why. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, if anything, we go to coffee now. But it is really good. So, one of the things we were talking about earlier, Jabbar, you and I, and getting Victoria, and before I get too far in that direction, I want to introduce. We got David with us today. And so he's going to be joining in and sharing a little bit as he feels comfortable, maybe even asking some questions, and sharing what you feel comfortable with in today's discussion, whichever direction we go in. But David, we're glad you're here, man.
Thank you. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for coming.
So Victoria, we were talking earlier about with our area, with Freeborn County, particularly Albert Lee, that you are essentially like the only boots on the ground type of recovery specialist, if that makes sense.
Yes, so I work for MNPRA, which is Minnesota Prevention Recovery Alliance. They were birthed out of Know the Truth, which comes from Teen Challenge. They used to speak, they still do speak in the schools for our youth. And I'm the Rochester team, but I work the Albert Lee, Austin, all our little towns, but our community. Our community is in dire need of that. And so, yes, I am essentially the only one with boots on the ground in our community, because we have our lovely fountain centers, and we have their peer, Jess, that works there. Yep, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah, we've had her on before.
Yes.
Yep.
But the thing is that she's covered by Mayo Clinic, so she works in house, and then I'm community based.
Yeah.
And then I have a wonderful team of peers that work with me, and they work out of Rochester and St. Peter and different areas. But in our general area, I am taking heed to our crisis we have here and just getting to know our community even further in depth and not shying away from them. So it's been really great. We had a great recovery walk at the Capitol this last Saturday. MMPRA had our booth up there. And it's just really being able to like dig in deep in our community while I've been here, and I know like both sides of the world. So I have this blessing of being able to feel comfortable in our community and not be scared of what may be unknown to other people.
Well, and that's why I like why I put the words boots on the ground versus in house, because Jess was an amazing resource. We had her on for a few times, and she is phenomenal resource, very insightful. But then she's an in-house provider, and that's wonderful, and it is needed,
very needed.
But again, that's only one side of a very multifaceted issue, and so to have your expertise and the whole idea of being boots on the ground is you're on the
streets.
You're on the streets, not to make it sound like, hey, but to really note that
Very hands-on
Yeah.
in a different manner. We're tag teaming this recovery
Yeah.
issue, and it's great because she gets to get them firsthand. And then once they cross through her doors, then they have the option of seeking that help, and I'm here to help. And I'm glad to be here to help. I got to stop at the police station yesterday and speak with them more in depth about what MMPRA does, what a peer recovery specialist does, and that like when their gray area hits the ground and they're like, I can't do nothing for these people because they're not breaking the law. Because it's not illegal to be crazy. It's not illegal to be high. It's just illegal to possess the drugs, and it's illegal to damage things in other people. But to be in that state of mind where they're in distress and manic, there's no help for them technically, unless there's that person that can be there to help guide them and show them. And so that's where I would come in.
So I'm curious. So have you? So you said you talked to the cops yesterday.
Yes.
Or the police.
I was at the police station.
Yeah.
Yes.
it's the culture we grew up.
Right. Yeah. But so, are they willing to participate in a way where it's not just let's put them in jail or let's do this, but rather to try and maybe contact you and then
So that's what the goal is right now, is to build these partnerships in this relationship where they reached out back to me today and told me that yes, they'd love it if I was to bring my intake packets and my knowledge cards and the education that I have about getting peer recovery help and services, and leaving them up at the local police station here for them to have access to, which
that's
in
actually
turn
pretty cool.
yeah.
I didn't realize. I guess I hadn't really thought much about that before. I mean, I always kind of thought about the whole idea of how do you get those people who are on the front line to be able to talk to the other people who are on the front line without it having to be this big hoo-ha or whatever. Fiasco. There you go.
And so the same incident where there was that woman who was in need of help, but she wasn't in a recovery program yet, and she was fearful of going to jail, but she wasn't breaking the law, but she was technically being a nuisance in their eyes, but they couldn't help her because she wasn't breaking the law, so that didn't call for their service. And so that day I got to establish a connection with the EMTs here in town, and they took my number down, and they actually were able to call me twice that week and be like, hey, we have
That's one of the things that we were hoping that we had no idea.
And that's one of our mission statements, is bridging the gap for MMPRA, because there is a break, and it has to do with politics and laws and things like that. Where it's like, remember that thing? It's not my department.
Right.
That's what that is. Well, guess what? It's all my department. So
that's the idea. Like there's this department and there's that department, and they don't communicate. So let's make a bridging department that brings both together, and that takes a lot of ingenuity. That takes a lot of initiative. That takes a lot of coming up with when the book hasn't been written. You got to figure out how to put that all together, and that we're one of the conversations is how do we do that? How do we come up with these additional solutions instead of here's the way it's always been done?
Right.
What other ways can
that actually gives me hope.
Yeah.
Honestly, because like I said, my fear is that we're just going to continue to sweep this whole addiction thing under the rug, and this is a way to kind of bring it out.
Yeah.
So very proud of you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So then here's a question to kind of segue the conversation just a little bit, is in your role with Boots on the Ground, Peer Recovery, because again, one of the purposes of our conversation is stimulating the community.
Yes.
And getting that idea of what can the community do better, how can we be aware? How can the circle around the addict? How can we function better?
Right.
So I guess, and this might be a really broad, open-ended question for us today: is how, what have you witnessed in terms of those communities around those addicts, and what are some of the struggles that you've witnessed? I mean, I don't want you to go I know you got to protect some details because confidentiality for certain individuals, but how that idea of when it comes to with your role and then you're bridging the gap with that department and this department, you're in a position where you're bringing community in awareness on a very very active level on this, and so now we're talking, okay, when the police contacts the family, when the paramedic has to deal with a loved one, or
Right.
and then you're involved in that.
And so, in a sense, so like yesterday, I was at the city office yesterday
Mhm.
because they've had 4 incidences this week where they had issues with people that were manic and high,
Mhm.
and many other things, but and nothing there was nothing, no
Yeah,
resolution.
they couldn't do anything about
Okay,
it.
so that left the addict still being an addict alone.
Right.
That left the police still frustrated and the businesses still affected,
Yeah.
and the people left without an answer. So yesterday, my whole point was to say, here's my number.
Right.
Call me because I can try to help. And when I say try to help, I mean to say like, hi,
Yeah.
Victoria, I'm here and you're not alone.
Yeah.
And we can figure something out. Because the thing is that a lot of people get scared of change.
Right.
Because change means, the possibility of growth or not growth.
Right.
You have that fear of failing. And so for me, the biggest thing is that because I came from this community and because a lot of the people that are in addiction, I seen in my own addiction.
Right.
And so there's that trust that's a little bit different from somebody that they don't know. And so it's having people around them that doesn't know that kind of addiction say, hey, I know someone that you might be able just to sit with for a moment.
Right.
And just to trust for just a moment to feel comfortable enough to think about change.
So how does that impact, like I'm gonna go to like the parents over a using child. How does that mentality now switch? Like what can it do for someone? I mean, again, I'm trying to simplify the language because I get like this. I have a one line I want to say, but I get the book in my head. When you have to sit with a family, you come alongside someone and say, "Hey, you're not alone. I'm here with you."
Right.
And you're coming into that. You're coming into somebody who's got loved ones. You're coming into somebody who's got family who wants to be there, but they don't know how.
Right.
And so you're coming into that environment, and you're sitting with a family. You're not sitting with one person. You're sitting with a family.
Right.
And so that must be interesting.
Well, someone coming in and introducing themselves, being open, not judgmental, is huge. It allows the addict to open up and say what they need to say without feeling persecuted or and that's huge, at least on my part. I mean, I've been in and out of addiction for 20 some years, and it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, and I like how you said it too, because it's when you have the family in there, like that's you can choose your friends, you can't choose your family, right? So you expect family to sit with you, and then you can do the blame game. We've kind of talked about that, where whether the family's blaming themselves for their loved one being in addiction, or whether the one in addiction is blaming themselves for the hardship that they're putting the family through. And so there is that dynamic where it's like, my family's got to be here. This is what they always deal with. This is what I've always done to them. And that kind of that self-reflection versus a third party coming in and choosing. And now it's not my family has to be here. Now there's another person who's choosing to come, choosing to sit with me, choosing to be here, which kind of changes the whole dynamic a little bit.
I kind of like what what David was saying is that like that's kind of the whole process for recovery, is that it's one addict helping another, and it makes more sense, rather than not that other peer recoveries who don't know addiction can't help,
right?
But it's much more comfortable when you know and you can look at someone and be like, you've been through this and I understand that. So it opens you up a little bit more in here to be able to, which is a huge, because you can't hardly get into recovery if you can't hardly get to that point where you're willing to at least say, hey, what, I am an addict and I know you understand this, and where do we go from here?
Right.
And you said you've been in active addiction on and off for
24 years.
About 23, 24 years, and just out of I know that you guys are good friends. I'm curious. So the way that she is doing things today, has that helped you in participation? How can you explain that to me? Just so
she takes me out of my comfort zone.
Right.
being safe for one
Yeah, we'll say this. I'm going to say this, interject this really quick. Take you out of your comfort zone. When we do these recordings, they seem laid back. We do talk about heavy subjects, and so for individuals to come and be a part of this, that first seating or two being with us, it can be very overwhelming
Right.
and very nerve wracking.
Yes.
So, hats off to you.
Right.
You know, but no, you go ahead.
No, but
yeah.
doing things like that is all part of growth. And if you're not growing in life, what are you doing? Addicts, they're very caring, very loving, and they're just looking for all the right things in all the wrong places. You know what I mean? So they want better. They want companionship, and they want trust most. And in addiction, you don't have that. It's I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry. But,
No,
You're right.
You're good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, and then that's the thing too, is the idea of, having trust and having that companionship, and a lot of that stems from shared experiences, but then also I think not just shared experiences, but victorious experiences, in the sense of, why the peer recovery role is such an important part is because you have someone who's seen the junk,
yeah.
knows the junk inside and out, has gone through it in every single way possible, and is now on the other side saying, I'm this, I've been clean this long,
Right.
I'm still going strong,
Right.
come with me.
Right.
And they're not willing to let you go into that, and so that is that idea of, like, I've turned my life around, you can too.
Yeah.
And for somebody who's in the depths of that, like, that's very inspiring. But at the same time, for now switching to the community side of things, to have a family who's like, how can we do this for our child is stuck in this, our child's not going to get out of this, and then have someone at peer recovery step in between them and their child, saying, hey, look, they can get out of this is me. And then the family sees that and they have a renewed sense of hope, they have a renewed sense of purpose, that, okay, this person's done it, they're clean, look at what they're doing with their lives, my child has hope, my child can come out of this.
And you never know what's gonna finally click for the
Yeah.
addict.
Right.
It could be something, that would be nothing to us,
Right.
but so much to them. And
Yeah.
it all depends on, can we bring up God?
Yeah.
It all depends on God.
It really does. Well, and that's I bring up the
Last time I
Bible.
got
We talk about the Lord.
Have
and
you
God.
met the pastor?
In case you didn't know, this is a church YouTube account.
Yes.
I'm a senior pastor, and I quote
He is
scripture.
his pastor.
No, it is. I mean, that's important, because there's a lot of time when it comes to really make inroads in recovery,
Right.
it has to take something beyond ourselves.
Right.
And the only truthful thing, higher power, is God.
Right.
And everyone's got to come to that place where you encounter him.
Right.
But for from a pastoral perspective, right, I come in and I have no idea what a person needs.
Right.
I'm very limited, but I trust that God, the Bible reveals to us that God is all powerful. He is all knowing. He is in all places. And so here's this Almighty who knows exactly what each person needs to get pulled out of their depths. Now, whether the person chooses to accept that is on them. But God knows what each person needs, what that trigger moment is to pull them out. And that varies person to person. Sometimes it might be a loss. Sometimes it might be a health crisis. Sometimes it might be a child. Sometimes it might be a parent. It varies on so many scopes, but God knows what each thing is. And for me to go in, it's like, okay, Lord, I don't know what this person needs. So I'm going to go in very humbly and just obedient to what I feel is needed in that moment, and just trusting God that He's going to give me the wisdom I need to deal with the situation, even though we have no idea what that trigger is.
Right.
So in recovery, just so that you can get a balance on this,
Mm-hmm.
they don't actually push that you believe in God necessarily,
Higher power.
but it's a
Yeah.
higher power.
They put
It's
higher
a
power in there,
right?
yeah.
And it's a higher power of your choosing. So I don't want because sometimes that can be an
Intimidating.
issue.
Or
Yes.
intimidating for some.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah,
haven't-
absolutely.
Who haven't built that.
We want to have that sensitivity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just I just wanted to make it clear that it's although us as individuals have this we believe in God, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where you have to be in your recovery. You are to choose your own higher power. And I know that kind of goes against some of the things that you would believe and think of because but that works for people, and it works because they're not pressured into something that they may be angry about, or they had bad childhood experiences about, or whatever it may be. They're not pushed into that. It's more about you recovering and you understanding that
Surrendering.
yes, and you understanding that you
Yeah.
are not necessarily you're not in control.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
I wanted to put that
yeah.
out there because I don't want because they're even though we're on the same side, we also have
There's multifaceted
Right.
listeners here.
there.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's an excellent point to kind of come up, bring it to that way is, so I think anchoring it in the idea that for those in recovery, the lie is that you're in charge. The lie is that you
well,
have,
and that's the first lie that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
Because the first step is admitting
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're powerless.
Yeah.
And that everything was unmanageable. So
Yeah.
so that lie gets diminished almost immediately.
Yeah. And so
well, not
recognizing
immediately, but
recognizing that you do need some help outside yourself.
correct.
And again, the idea of recovery is the idea that we're dealing with this issue, and so let's start right here
Right.
and build from there.
Right.
And sometimes I think what can be really, really interesting with our conversations, especially the fact that these are located on a church website, is that we do have I say we, myself more,
And YouTube.
yeah, and YouTube, we have this
Just want to put it out.
yeah we
Sorry.
well and that's like for me, like, because I instead of viewing, and this is where I've always checked myself every time we have these conversations, is because I'm viewing this, like, the recovery help, like, halfway down the road, like this is where it needs to be when there's a lot of people that are not there yet. And so I do have to check myself and be like, okay, no, we need to get the idea that you need a higher power, and you're searching for a higher power. Me, I'm like, I know the higher power.
Right.
It's over here.
Right.
But there's a translation where, unless you have a personal conversation with somebody in person, a loved one who can connect those dots for you, some people are just not ready for that.
Well,
And so just
we're all in
Very-
different
Yeah.
places in life, like it is.
it's
what
very intimidating.
it can be.
you know.
So I was walking into church this weekend and running late. I have 4 in diapers at home.
Oh, yeah.
And just life in general.
Oh no, I love that kind of people.
Yes, and so I was walking in, and I just really needed that moment to myself where, like, and I was like, I'm just gonna grab my Bible and sit down outside the church doors where there's this great big vent, and I could hear the pastor just coming out, Pastor Caleb from Home Church.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Just clearly speaking, and I'm like, this is the perfect seat in the house today for me.
Yep.
So all the kids were down in the nursery.
I know what bench you're talking about.
Yes, and so I was sitting there, and I opened my Bible, and I literally had not sat down long enough to hear what he was speaking about, and I opened it up, and it's to 2 Corinthians 12:8, which was, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, and in insults, and hardship, and persecution, and in difficulties. For when I am weak, I am strong.
Can you read the beginning sentence of that again?
Yeah, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me.
Yeah. That internal struggle that he dealt with.
Yeah, and I bring
I've
this
led
up
with
because
many,
we
many
talk
times.
about
There you
grace,
go.
and we talk about acceptance, and we
Yeah.
talk about, and I've heard this in different many forms of conversation and recovery meetings and in church, and now again here we're speaking about this, and it all in turns is talking about grace, and it's talking about, and at the same time as I open my Bible and I'm reading this, I hear the pastor talking about God's grace.
Yeah.
And through the vent, and I'm like, oh, what is the odds of that, you know? And a gentleman was sitting in front of me, and like, that's what the pastor's speaking about. And I was like, really? And so then I waited a moment, and I'm like, just take a seat next to me real quick, and we'll just finish hearing this. And it was all in perfect timing, you know? Sometimes we may not think it's the right timing.
Right.
And it's just not our timing.
Right.
And it's,
there's a greater timing in all that.
Yes, and so when we talk about asking to take things away and asking to take things away, like I wouldn't have my testimony that I have. I mean, do I wish anyone goes through the pain and suffering? No, but I would not have the testimony that I have now today if I didn't go through what I went through,
Right.
and I wouldn't be able to connect with certain individuals or even myself on a level that I connect with.
Yeah.
If I didn't go through those hardships,
Right.
you know, I wouldn't be sitting across from you or you or you know.
It molds you.
Yes.
I think that's kind of what you were touching on too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, and that's a huge thing too. Is recognizing this. Talking about Paul in the Bible and how he wrote that. I had this thorn in the flesh. I pleaded with the Lord 3 times to have him take it from me. There's another part where he's talking to another church, and I believe it was in Galatians chapter 6. If not 6, maybe Galatians 4. It's in Galatians. And he gets up there and he starts talking about all of his degrees. I'm going to paraphrase it here because there's a long list of like, this is how prestigious of a person I am.
Right.
And Paul's like, I am of this family. I have done this education. I went to this school. I mean, he gives what like the ancient equivalent of would be like, I am from the Kennedy family. I went to Yale.
Bachelor's.
He's got all these, and then he goes to this whole list, and he gets to the very bottom, and he goes, I consider it all trash. I consider it refuse for the sake of just knowing Jesus. Like he takes his whole degree, and so that idea of like, and it's so fun because again that humble approach, letting God shape us, and then like what is of greater importance, and he brings it to that point, and I think it's like that's like going to kind of bring it back to this conversation here is we're all being molded and being adjusted and going through our stories that even for those of us on the other side of things, we have to take a step back and be like, okay, what is of the greatest importance? And am I the biggest dog in the pound? Am I the biggest war chief in the world? Am I the biggest? And it's like, nope, I'm a nobody.
Well, and even in recovery, though, we still have our daily struggles. I drive a minivan that has no reverse and no power steering.
No reverse?
Yeah, okay. So I'm saying, but I still wake up, I still smile, and I still get to where I need to go, and I still get there.
Yeah.
You know, because my mind is already there beforehand.
Yeah.
You know, so I will do what I have to do to get there.
Yeah.
Because that's where my mind is at. But it's not my first rodeo, you know.
Right.
So it's not like a one and done. Like it's an everyday work. It's everyday work for me. It's everyday work for him. It's everyday. We have to wake up and choose this, you know.
My vehicle does not have air conditioning.
Oh.
So where
in the summer, I picked up a guest speaker.
Either does his room.
Even this room? What do you say? This room?
Do you want a
Either does
pamphlet?
his room.
I'm like, do you want a pamphlet? Air yourself.
So where, if you don't mind me asking, and we kind of talked about this, where are you exactly in your recovery? Where are you trying to point yourself? And what can we do to help? I guess is really kind of where.
Actually, in all honesty, I'm leaving for detox tomorrow.
Yes.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Way to go.
So
Nice.
Victory. High fives. Come on.
yeah.
Good journey.
So I
So you're
just
getting started.
Yeah, I'm getting started.
Good for you.
I had a little fall off since my father died, and that's the first time I brought it up besides with her.
Mhm.
And I just coping in the wrong ways, you know.
Well, and that's the thing too. And we talked about when life throws you massive curveballs. When you get those what I call a triggering moment, like a highly emotional triggering moment. You lost your father, and that. I mean to me, knowing that it's like, still in that early disciplines, trying to early get things taken care of, that can be a really strong triggering moment.
Yeah.
And so, props for taking that step. Like, it's like, yeah, you stumbled, you tripped, your foot hit the stone, and it, you bruised your toe, but
Right.
you're moving forward. And that's I think that's the biggest part is like, don't, I think a lot of times when it comes to recovery, people just feel like, okay, I can't kick this, so I might as well just give myself to it. No, the biggest story is I'm going to keep going forward. I got to keep working on this
No matter
until
what.
no matter what. So sometimes the I love how everyone I meet in this circle, in this community, if I were to put the addiction as a community, the ones who clean, they say, I've been in recovery for X amount of years. I've been in recovery for, and because for me,
With continuous.
it's, well, I love this. I want to, like, you can't see it because it's too far away from the camera. But the one day at a time
Yeah.
is like I'm constantly moving forward. Even if there are some people who might take they might trip and fall back a step or two, but they get back up and they keep moving forward. And I think that's where greater victory occurs. Is I'm not willing to be bound to the old person. I want to be made new, so I'm going to keep on going towards the new, even whether it takes me 5 years or the rest of my life. This is who I want to become, so I'm going to go in that direction. So props to
Super
that.
proud of you.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I'm proud of you. Like, that first step is the hardest step to do, and to really, like, just I for me, I couldn't do it on my own. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
They had to put me away. And so I'm kind of curious, what was it that, if you don't mind sharing, what kind of pushed you into that decision for yourself and
Last November, I had something happen to me that not of this world, and the person I was after that, I want back.
right on.
Was that back in November?
That was back in November.
Mhm.
November
Oh,
9th.
So to kind of give a little context, a little context here, what he's talking about. Last episode, or was it one of the previous ones? I had mentioned how I went at midnight
In your pajamas.
in my pajamas to help somebody go through a situation, and that individual was David. So so we have this shared history where the dude saw me in my most. I was there in my pajama shorts and a sweatshirt in the middle of November. In Minnesota, in the cold, and no, there was no snow on the ground.
No, not yet.
Praise God for that.
It was cold.
I
though.
still would have been there. But that was a life transforming moment
Oh, it definitely was.
for us.
So
And
it kind
for
of
you.
ruined your drug use after that. Huh?
Oh yeah, I mean it's just
That's what recovery
it's,
did
it's
to
not
me.
the person.
It really did.
I know the person I can
No.
be, and I know the person I am now,
Right,
and it's just not doesn't add up or doesn't equal to not even close.
right.
Well, that's what's fun is like, and you point that out. It's like I know the person I can be.
Yeah.
Like you've been that person before. You know what that person's capable of. You know the strengths that you have.
Yeah.
And so even though you tripped up and it's gone backwards, it's like, man, no, I want to be that person.
Yeah, and even in the context of the way he said, I can be.
Yes.
Not that I will never be again.
Right.
It was that hope is just built into his
That possibility. Well, and I think what's fun is like you, and this is again like having the community brought into this, is it was the community who revealed that person to you. It was the ones who like came alongside and said, no, you're not meant for this lifestyle anymore,
Right.
and they pulled you out of that mess,
Right.
and you were willing enough to go with them into that,
Yeah.
and then you got to see what they saw. I think that's one thing that's really cool about having friends, having family who are on the other side of the fence per se, that can look at that and be like, no, we know who you can be. You gotta see that for yourself. That's like with what you went through with your story, Victoria.
Yeah.
Is like you people say, hey, look what you can be. You got a taste of that, and now you're like, I can't let that go.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna keep pushing, and that's just exactly it. And every time I get to have that light click on moment that we speak about, like that we get to see in meetings when someone finally like wants it for themselves, because you can't make them drink,
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you can give someone a dish and be like, here, if you want to eat it, you can eat it, but they're gonna eat it if they want to eat it,
Yep.
And so for me, it's like so neat because it's kind of like you talk about like soldiers going to war and things like
Yeah.
that. It's just like I get to be right there and see that make or break moment.
Well, and that's like the fun part. Like when you find one of my passions is so I'm a Bible teacher. I love teaching the Bible, and so when I can teach a confusing scripture to somebody,
Yeah.
and I get to teach it, and you see the light go on where they get it for the first time, you're like, they
Right.
get it now. So in the context of recovery, you see somebody like their light goes on, they get it, and then just like, I'm doing my purpose.
Right. Well, and, and the
it's
thing
fun.
is they talk about like when you build healthy boundaries, it gets lonely at first. And like I don't get bored. I have so many things going on in my head that even if I sat in a room with nothing in there, I would still not be bored. But in the
you have how many diapers at your house? You have no time to get bored.
Right. But in the context of like even like when I started building, because I'll have 4 years in October. For my recovery. And
praise God.
So when I started building my healthy boundaries though, I literally had to cut off people that I've known my whole life. You know, for my own growth.
Right.
And it's you know, it's like, hey, you know, and some of those people you'll take with you your whole life.
Right.
You know, and it's just but you just can't be there next to them at that moment.
Right.
You know, and that's sad. So when I get to start like opening the boat, you know, and them wanting to get on the boat, it is so amazing because it's like, yes, you know, like I'm not sitting in here like telling my own like, oh, today was great. Now I have other people that I can speak to and have that joint conversation with.
Well, those boundaries, like, yes, I cannot go in that old way of life anymore. Right. But if you want to join me in mine, you're more than welcome to.
Right. Yeah, you know? the path is wide enough. Let's do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Recovery actually, people in recovery, I should say, they celebrate the newcomer, and there's a good reason for that.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's unselfish and it's selfish at the same time.
Yes.
So unselfishly, of course, we want to see somebody begin their journey.
Someone else is with this.
Right. We want to see them begin their journey. And the selfish part is that it's a reminder to us, you know, that, hey, I was there. You know, I had to take that first step for myself, you know, and I don't ever want to go backwards, you know. And so and that's kind of how recovery works in a lot of ways, is that watching somebody else go through their journey also helps me go through my journey, you know.
Well, and
to see that light come on is the most awesome thing in the world.
I grew up hiking in Western Washington, so mountains. In Minnesota, okay,
That's where you get the river shoes from.
Minnesota, there's no mountains in Minnesota. You have small hills. I've had mountains. Like the big deep and so what's fun about those on those trails, so you could be sitting there and then you know you're on the trail, you're hiking, and then someone else comes up behind you and you look back at them, you're so thankful that look, they caught up to me, but then you look behind the trail, you get to see the past trail that they just conquered, and you think to yourself, man, I just went through that myself too.
Right.
This is awesome. And so you're excited because they made it this far. Look at how you're doing a great job. Keep it. I love hiking with families, or seeing families hike, because you got this parent with their little child
and
they're teaching, and so this little child comes up and you see this kid, you're taking a break, you know, you're at that point, this kid catches up to where you're at, this kid goes by, little toddler, just having time of their life, and you look at this kid and you look at what this kid just conquered, and you see that. I like to go there and like, great job, champ, keep it up, fist bump, you know, because it inspires them, and the kid, you can see the little puffed up, like, yes, I can do this. Look at me, keep going. And then at the same time, like, look what they conquered. Yeah. I conquered that too, and it's that inspiration kicks in.
Every time my children fall and stand back up, I'm like, score!
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like, oh honey, are you okay? No, score! Like you just stood back up again. You know. And so
it is fun. There's those scary moments where your kid comes and they're like you want to help them, and they look at you,
they
go, no, I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't. My 5-year-old wanted to hold the big old milk jug we've got. I can do this. No. Oh, no, you can't. I can pour it myself. No. But let daddy help. You know, but it's that idea. It is fun when that light goes on. You can see them actually accomplish it and to be a part. But then, like you were saying, Jabbar, is that idea of, you know, like, yes, unselfishly, look what you're doing. This is huge. And then at the same time, look what I'm able to do. Look what I've conquered. Oh, look what I've conquered. And it's like, you remember that stories.
And the thing is, like, in the recovery realm, we don't want to, like, we're there to stand by you and, like, of course, celebrate and grow. But at the same time, like, we're standing on our own 2 feet, you know, and so it's like we want to help other people find that strength in their legs, but not do it for them.
Yeah. Well,
that is the kicker.
Yeah. Well, that's the hard part. Like you know, with David, with your story and what you've gone through. I mean, you got there's a lot of times where your friends, your family, even myself, that man, we could take this away for you. We would do it in a heartbeat. Like in a heartbeat. We don't want anyone to go through that kind of stuff anymore. But at the same time, that robs the person who needs the strength to live, that needs the strength to stand. It robs you of that ability.
Yeah.
So it's like as much as I want to be that person, I can't. Like it's like no, you actually have to walk this trail yourself. You've got to go through that process, and that's the hard part. Is it is hard. It is it's the lifting, it's the cardio, it's you've got to do the work that's gonna like make you sore, make you be out of breath.
Vulnerable.
It helps you
Coming
own
here and saying that to everyone.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
That's like,
You know,
Really
but
is.
yeah, owning it, you have to own your own
Yeah.
recovery. Otherwise, it kind of cheapens the whole idea of it, you know. And yeah, you just you know, making that statement is a big deal. And I kind of wanted to point out that we're not just talking about recovery and addiction. Like Pastor, he's gone and like tried to make changes in people's lives.
Oh yeah.
Obviously Victoria is very active in the, you know, so it's not just that we want to talk about it, it's that we actually really go out there and try and do some things, you know.
as a
Probably you
whole.
guys more than me because you're, you know, it's
No,
your
you
jobs.
are no, but still,
You know.
but it's a lifestyle.
It
and
is-
that's
it is a
that's our
lifestyle.
way of being, and that's
Right.
Well, and that's the important thing, like too, like, and I guess like anchoring this whole conversation too is the idea that you know we have these conversations, we get very vulnerable, we talk about really sensitive things, some things that people agree with, some things
Okay.
people won't agree with.
Right.
You know, there might be people who are in addiction and recovery who are going to benefit a lot of these conversations, but then when I talk about the Bible, they want to toss that part out.
right there.
I get that.
So I actually invited somebody who is very active in helping people in treatment and things
Yep.
like that, and they turned this down because they didn't want to talk about God. They
Yeah.
were completely against, you know, the whole idea of it, which kind of baffled me because
Right.
you're like the center of helping these people in
Yeah.
treatment, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But you know, that was his decision,
That's
and it was okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it was you know, it was,
People have their position that they're going to be in.
right. So
And-
everybody's going to have a
Yeah.
different way of thinking about things and how they approach and you know what they think works and what they think
Yeah.
doesn't. You know, but that's the whole point of this conversation is because we don't have the answers.
We don't.
And you know, it's to put out there that you know there are other options. You know.
Yeah. Well,
So-
and that idea too, like for us, like we want to expose. We bring in people who have expertise, who have experience in it.
Mhm.
We have our experiences that vary person to person,
Right.
and between me and you and everybody else in here, you know, it's different life, different stories that we bring. But then we have these conversations where we bring up these topics, we bring up these tidbits of wisdom, this knowledge and this experience and these testimonies, and we don't just sit and have these conversations. We actually take these and turn them into boots on the ground. Like, how do we sit there and
Right.
what you know? I learn so much every time we have these conversations. I gain so much more, and so for me to take these conversations, what we've had, and then being able to turn around and use them with my own family, use them with people in the church, use them with counseling, use them with just encountering people on the street. It's like it becomes very useful. But I would not have this knowledge. I would not have this repertoire to work with from that we gain from these conversations.
Right, or the more curiosity.
I would not have that were we not having this. And so I take these things, and it to me it's another tool in the belt. It's another thing where I consider like, okay, I may not be an expert, but I know something now that I did not know before. And even
So
if
that's
it's
success in my mind.
it is a huge
We're already
success.
winning.
Right.
And so like what's fun for me is how I've been able to grow in these conversations. and how they've impacted me, you know, to to love more, to be more patient, to value people more, and you know, to kind of take the ultra churched angle here. Sometimes in churches we can become so closed off to people who are not like us that we ostracize them in a certain way because we devalue them in a certain way. Whereas no, that's not how it's supposed to be at all. And so you know, how can I still love people the way Christ did, or the way the Bible teaches me to love other people? And it's caused me to grow in these conversations. And so I take these things that we have here and I utilize it. And that's just not my hope for myself. My hope is that anyone who watches these videos has those same kind of conversations in their home, or takes that knowledge that they've gained and they've learned and can apply it to their own context, you know, or that, you know, whoever we have on, you know, what, you know, like David's with us today. So David, what are you learning today that is going to help you tomorrow? Like that's the whole idea of these conversations is, you know, we're learning and we're taking these tools. We're going to sit down. How can we apply it outside?
Right. See, and for me, I think about that. You know, you're fresh, so you're kind of going through this process. Do you have a plan? Have you had someone help you get to that plan? Did you already know recovery prior? You know, yeah. I mean, like
I've known recovery for a long time. I guess my dad was sober 37 years.
Right.
Phenomenal.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just I mean, he was my hero, and after he passed away, I didn't know where else to turn really, and like I said, I just want to be the person I know I can be.
Right.
So I haven't even I haven't talked to my family or nothing about this yet, so this is all kind of new. But yeah.
Right.
But
we are.
Ah, here I am.
I just texted my mother and said, "Sorry, Mom, I love you." Yeah,
Should be proud of you though.
Yeah, I plan on doing this, and maybe I can come back after I'm
Yeah.
clear-headed and
Right on.
feeling good, and see the difference.
Yeah.
And so
To give a little context, David's dad, an amazing man,
Jim
30 some odd years, clean, sober. The man was a fighter. He had passed away less than a month ago.
it is a month ago.
It is a month ago. Yeah. That is right. No, it is a month ago now. But here's the amazing. This is the kind of like what's really amazing about how the family and the recovery and how your story can help those around you is, you know, with being 30 some odd years sober. David's father, Jim, was a man who fought for those who were in recovery
Without
and
judgment.
without judgment. I mean, he
Nothing
knew
but
the
love.
junk and he loved well, and you know, that's one of those inspiring things at his service. It was a very full service with a bunch of
Dry
people.
Riders, American Legion,
Yes.
AA, NA, Christian Motorcycle Association.
He touched people, and here's the thing: he did not have a big alphabet after his name. No MD, no doctorate, nothing like that. He was a simple man who just wanted to love people, and it showed. I mean, he just fought to love people. And how many people called him father? Like, yeah, you were his son, which is great, but right? But how many siblings did you have?
A lot.
A lot, and it's because he just loved them well. You know, he loved them, he accepted them, he brought them in, but at the same time, he's like
He sat alongside them.
he sat alongside me. You know, he did give his disapproval. I mean, it's like no, this is not what you're meant for.
Right.
I still love you. I'm still with you, but this is not what you're meant for. And he did that, and because he did that, how many people's lives were transformed because of this one man's actions? And that's just one person. Now, if we get the whole community to act that way, what would happen?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
So-
exactly it. Everybody needs a gym in their life.
Everybody needs a gym.
So I'm kind of curious, you know, because I kind of want to get into this idea because you're at the beginning of what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. So, like, what are your fears? What are you talking to other people, or is well, I guess you just told us this was the first time that other than Victoria, but you know, I'm curious. What are your fears? How are you feeling? You know, like, what is the struggle that's happening so that other people kind of understand that.
Well, with my father passing away, he left me his home and other things of responsibility. And so,
Right.
if I don't get myself right, I'm not gonna be able to keep any of those. And everything my dad worked for, ever, I don't want to lose, and including myself.
Right.
And so, it's a fight every day, and living a lie is hard.
You ain't joking.
You know,
It is.
Tiring.
it is, and I don't like it. So, I was just I don't know. I need to grieve my father properly
Mm-hmm.
and not suppress him.
Right.
And I haven't been doing that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
That
think
makes
that's,
sense to me.
well, and that's true. I guess that's one of the things too. If I may, I've noticed this. That's one of those things where any kind of substance abuse,
just covers it.
it covers it. It robs you of that. Whether it's pornography, alcohol, drugs, whatever, that substance numbing chemical release, it robs you of that ability to properly go through that.
And not only just substance abuse, but the addiction of chaos,
Yeah.
because it allows your mind to be overtaken already by no extra time for yourself to sit.
You're you're masking what's really
Yeah,
going on.
exactly.
And you know, and my you can tell my tone has changed a little bit because I want to be really respectful. But that is one of those things when you're dealing with grief and you're going through that, like it does mask that ability for you to properly do that. And I love that when you say that, David, when you say that I need to grieve for my father, I need to go through this process because it is a process. Um, and so again, just the excitement, and the if I can use it this way, the pride that we have that you're going through this detox, that you're going into this to get clean,
Yeah.
so that you can honor your father, so that you can grieve for him, so that you can you. I mean, how many of this? Okay, as men who respect our fathers, right? Just men respecting the male figure in our lives, respecting that male figure. How many of us want to get to that point where we live to honor them, right? We live to honor that mentor. We live to honor that man who spoke into our lives and shaped us and molded us. We want to honor that memory. We want to do that, and so like this is an amazing step where like your motivation is it's bigger than you now, and that's huge.
So I to kind of bring that whole community idea. So has the community, like, how has the community been involved to get you to this point? And is there other things that could actually, like, that you could see right now, and you're like, God, if somebody would have, you know what I mean, like, what helped in some way or done something, what is it that you needed that wasn't completely put out there for you? Do you understand my question?
I don't really.
Okay, so first of all, how has the community kind of embraced you, in to try and keep you out of this addiction? I'm not talking about
immensely. I mean, I have such a big sober support system, and I have not utilized them in the last month or two. So, yeah, as far as that goes, like growing up, I had an awesome family. I mean, I grew up in such a wonderful home,
Loving mom. Yeah.
loving mom and father,
Mm-hmm.
doing everything they could for me to make sure I was okay. And there comes a point where that can be too much, where I didn't have to learn so much on my own,
Right,
as knowing it would be handed to me if I wanted it.
right.
And that sense.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is there something that you could think? I mean, because you're fresh on this, I'm trying to like pick your brain a little bit, and I apologize if it feels intrusive. But I'm curious. Is there something that you think? God, if this was available, or if this, if there could have been some kind of communication somewhere along the line where the community could make a better impact on somebody who's actually in active addiction. Excuse my language. It's okay if you don't have an
I
answer.
don't have any.
Yeah, because I was the same way. I'm still that way. Like, I don't know what we can do.
Yeah.
But then, Victoria shows up and she's bridging that gap, and I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Right.
I wouldn't have thought about that. To me, I thought a peer recovery was, hey, I'm gonna help this one client, and then that's, I didn't realize that what she was actually doing was bringing in the community. Like, hey,
Right.
this is a problem. How do we help? And I mean, so I learned something new today, and that was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is huge. That's a massive.
Well, here's the thing: we may not all have we don't have the same first or last name, but our zip code is all the same.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you might as well calculate it in. We are on the same census. We are on the same, and then in reality is we are all human beings, and so we all are connected to every zip code, because we impact each other tremendously.
And that's the like shared life,
Yeah.
life experience.
It is.
I mean, I don't share this too often, partly because it's an older memory of mine. But back when I was a kid, back when I was probably 12, 13 maybe, no, maybe even younger, might have been 11. There was a young I was gonna say a young woman. She was probably 14 or 15, who was in addiction and had to go every week, go to a special treatment every week. And so my mother was her driver to make sure that she would get to treatment. And so I remember riding with mom because dad was at work and the three of us kids had to ride with mom. And mom, we would go and we'd pick this young woman up and we would take her 45 minutes to a clinic, and she would go into that clinic, and then we would sit around and wait for an hour, and then we'd pick her up and take her back home. I do not remember her name. I don't even remember. I think she was blonde with curly hair, and that was it. That's the only thing I remember about her. I don't remember very much, but that was my earliest experiences of watching my mom do that. And we don't have all the answers. We don't know exactly what to do, but
Just being there.
that well, and that's the thing too, is like the idea of addiction and recovery. It's such a multifaceted issue, but it's an issue that reaches every corner of the globe.
Yeah.
Like it's not just a U.S. issue, but there's
Everywhere.
Europe, there's Russia, there's all these other nations that deal with addiction as well, and it's a part of the human condition when we want to do our own selfish things and go into our own direction of life, and it's such a big
or when we don't have the tools to know
we don't
to
have the
cope
tools.
with.
And that's the hard part. And so like being able to say like I don't have the answers, but I'm willing to talk about the issue so that maybe somebody else can get a tool from this conversation.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's just knowing that they're accessible and they're there for them to grab out of that toolbox. When
and
they're
so
ready.
that's kind of a major thing. So you good? Does anyone want to add anything, or do we ready to?
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, yeah, you're welcome.
MMPRA.org is where you can
MMP.
find resources.
You will find that link in the description below, and we'll add that in. So I want to make sure that gets in there.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad that you're taking the steps you are. I really am,
Yeah.
David.
It's really good.
I'm really hoping on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're excited about this, David. We're glad that you joined us. I brought your perspective and your insight, and it's really cool. So you can find the link for assistance in the description below. And we are so thankful for you guys taking time out of your day to join us. You have a great day, and we'll see you next time.